Hi, it's Anna here. Thanks for tuning in. So in today's video, I want to discuss the fact that for us empaths, the givers, the ones who are leaning too much in our light aspect, the most transformative work that we need to be doing on this path is to resurrect the organic dark aspect of ourselves. It's been called for women the dark feminine or the wild woman. If you are familiar with the book Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, she refers to it as the wild woman. It can also be considered as, the rebalancing of the feminine and masculine energies within ourselves and anchoring that masculine pole. Personally, I really resonate with the dark feminine, and actually, a very big sign that this is the biggest work that we need to be doing is that we tend to have a bias and an aversion to the word dark. So if the word dark feminine or dark in general triggers you, that's a big sign. And by dark, I do not mean toxic. I do not mean abusive or mean. I mean empowered. And on this path, as we go along and heal ourselves and resurrect that aspect of ourselves and come to a place of wholeness, there is a reconciliation that happens with words that we have biases to, right? We are taking back our power even in the use of the words. So this is our biggest work, and it's been the biggest work for me and the most transformative. It's actually a part of ourselves that was suppressed, I would say, at birth from ancestral wounding. So personally, if I look at my maternal ancestral line, I can very much see where that comes from. I can actually also see that it probably comes for me at a soul level. It's something that I've chosen to experience in this life. But also, it becomes this really suppressed aspect of ourselves because of the experiences that we've had in this life, right? If you've been raised in a very dysfunctional, toxic, abusive family, that part of yourself has most likely been even more suppressed. If you've been called difficult or too sensitive every time you spoke up, it has a compounding effect, right? This aspect of ourself is already suppressed to some level as a child, and then various experiences compound it even further, which means that it will be the most suppressed and hidden aspect of yourself that you're not even consciously aware that you need to work on until you have a huge awakening. And it becomes very clear that you need to work on this because once you experience an awakening, everything in your reality will come up for release, for healing, so for resolution. So you will bump up against experiences that will clearly show you where you are lacking that self-worth, that self-love, and those boundaries, which is all about the dark feminine, that power. So that aspect of ourselves, the dark feminine, is our untapped potential, and it is our untapped power. This is why it's such a huge component of coming back into wholeness, into fullness from within. So the reason why this is the most transformative aspect to resurrect, and it really feels like a resurrection, right, is because we fear that aspect of ourselves. We fear that power. And there are various components to that fear. The first fear, I would say, is that there's a fear of getting hurt, because we've been hurt. We've spoken up and we've been hurt. There's a fear of closing our heart and becoming toxic, because that's what we've witnessed others do, right? We haven't been modeled a healthy way of embodying that power. We've been modeled the reactive anger, the toxic anger, the abusive anger. And there's a huge fear as well of hurting others. I feel like for me, it was probably the most important one. And my daughter actually recently explained this so well, and she's 9 years old now. And the reason why I also say that we probably come with this at a soul level is because she's 9 and she has me as a mother who's modeled, this resurrection, this transformation. We've had so many discussions about this. And recently she's told me, Mom, if a boy asks me to marry him and I don't want to, I'm going to have to say yes because I don't want to hurt his feelings. So we've got this running through the cells in our body, whether it's ancestral, whether it's also at a soul level. We've inherited a lot of this suppression that needs to be transformed, and it needs to be done at an individual level as well. It's not because I'm doing it that my daughter is going to be freed from that, right? That she also needs to do her own work at a soul level. I also think that fear of others, it's what I want to address as well is that a lot of people, talk about all of this, our lack of boundaries being from a place of people pleasing and all of that. And I don't agree with that. I actually think that for myself and all the people that I know of on this journey, people pleasing is a very small aspect of this. We tend not to be meek or suppressed in that way. We actually are quite strong and powerful in our own way, but it's this fear of hurting others, which is actually very genuine and comes from a misunderstanding of what love is. It's not a people pleasing, because people pleasing actually is about wanting to be approved, wanting to be part of the tribe. Like I don't resonate with this personally. I feel like that's actually very surface level, and on this channel I like to go a lot deeper than this. Another fear that I want to address is that I think we inherently understand that power is a test of character, and that with great power comes great responsibility. And this resurrection, and the reason why we have so much resistance to, and why it takes us so long, is actually probably a good thing, because we need to be measured in our approach, right? To really crack it, to really crack the true power, which is rooted in self-love and self-worth and not hatred towards others. We need to take our time. We need to remember that slow and steady wins the race, that it takes practice, it takes trial and error, and that when I talk about resurrecting that aspect of ourselves, I don't just talk about putting boundaries. I talk about an actual inner transformation that's going to allow you to get out of the matrix frequency. So if you look at the map of consciousness, and I did a video on that earlier, the pyramid of consciousness, at the bottom, what's referred to here as the 3D frequency, what I call the matrix frequency. To get out of that, you need the true power, the true dark feminine, not the toxic version, not the reactive anger version, the true righteous anger version that actually comes from an unwavering inner authority that comes directly from spirit. It's a very, very pure energy, and it's rooted in self-love and self-worth. It's not about hatring towards others. We've probably we've all experienced reactive anger, right? When you are in this reactive anger mode, even if you're not hating anyone, it's this blame energy, it's an energy of trying to convince someone that you're right, or to prove yourself, or your point, or to attack, right? The energy that I'm talking about, this righteous anger, the true dark feminine, the true organic aspect of yourself, is this unwavering inner authority where you're not proving anything to anyone. You're still calling things out though. There's a very big difference in energy between blaming someone and calling something out. Very big difference. You're still speaking up, you're still putting those boundaries, but you're no longer wavering. You're no longer feeling guilty, you're no longer feeling bad, or thinking that you're hurting someone. You've worked through all that. So to get to that point, obviously, it's a lot of practice, it's a lot of trial and error, but like I said at the beginning, the good news on this journey is that once you're thrown into an awakening path, things will come up, experiences will come up to help you with that practice. But I want to make something very clear, that the energy you need to embody is that unwavering inner authority. And that's the resurrection. That's the key to your liberation. that's the key to your transforming your life from the inside out, because it's actually a transformation of your frequency on the inside. Coming back to that place of wholeness, right? Resurrecting that organic dark aspect of yourself to match the light, and coming to a place of wholeness is what actually allows you to completely shift out of that matrix frequency. If you look at the pyramid of consciousness, the last frequency, which is basically the dominant energy on that pyramid, to get you out of the matrix frequency, is courage. This is what you need to embody, this level of courage. And also, when I talk about completely anchoring and embodying that dark feminine, I'm not just talking about putting boundaries with toxic and abusive people, because that's one part of it. I'm also talking, and that's when you need to actually call things out, right? I'm also talking about wanting so much more for yourself. Lowering your tolerance level, not just to bullshit, but to breadcrumbs. Because on this path, we also encounter really loving people, but they don't have much to offer at all. And so the test is going to be, are you just accepting that? Is it what you think you're worth? And that's a big test, right? Because when you still play small, when you still, giving more that you receive, it's an act of self-betrayal. And so that's the level that I'm talking about. It's wanting so much more for yourself, which is so hard for us to do. The ones who are leaning too much in our light aspect, we really struggle with this. And, it's a combination of ancestral wounds and, the experiences that we've had in this lifetime. I know that I grew up with a lot of abuse. I was in an abusive relationship. I understand where all this is coming from. And what I want to make clear as well is that you might be surprised by the level of intensity that needs to come behind your words. Because like I said, it's not just about speaking out, putting boundaries, writing that text saying no. It's about the actual energy behind those words. It's a completely different energy. And so for me, like I said, I have no issues talking about the dark feminine. I resonate with that concept very well. For men, it's probably called the dark masculine. I also like to refer to it as the tiger. It really speaks to me. I think sometimes using animal analogy for energies that we are feeling within ourselves can be very useful. And so for me, it was that tiger energy, which really explains the level of intensity that I had to embody, because personally in my life, I was surrounded by a lot of toxicity and abuse. And one of the last experience that I went through was actually having to physically defend myself against my dad, who was attacking me. So I just want to share that, because I'm not just sitting here I understand this so viscerally. I've lived it. I understand how difficult it is. I understand how much resistance and fear we have about this, how much we want to, bypass this. I tried to run away from all of that. I was trying to keep the peace. I was trying to avert what my soul was clearly guiding me to do. It was right in my face, and I was still fighting it. I was still trying to avoid it. I was co-parenting with someone really manipulative and toxic, and I was trying to keep the peace for the kids. And I had to come to the realization that I was actually betraying myself. It was not working. But I also want to say that once you transform yourself, once you allow those experiences to transform you instead of resisting that transformation, it will shift everything for you. And also the fear that we may have, right, is that we may have a fear of losing our innocence and our softness, right? And we may think, oh my God, so I'm going through these experiences, so this is it now, this is going to be my life. No. Once you embody that, once you've anchored this, within a few months, you will see your external reality actually shift, and it will become so peaceful. And it's such a strange feeling because it's the paradox. That dark feminine is embodied, that tiger is embodied and can come out as needed, but you also don't need to actually use it. Once you've anchored something, you don't actually need to use it because you've completely shifted your frequency, and so you become a repellent for toxicity and bullshit. This is what I've achieved with my kid's father. Embodying that tiger and putting those strong boundaries, saying things like fuck off, your bullshit doesn't work on me anymore, and sort of like matching that level of intensity, never matching the character though. You know, like I said, power is a huge test of character. So there are things that I never allowed myself to do. You don't become the narcissist, you don't stoop to anyone's level, but you do match the intensity in that divine authority. Once you do that, there's some crazy stuff that happens where that energy can't reach you anymore. And you'll come to realize that all these experiences that you went through were trying to get you to your liberation. When you go through them, it doesn't feel like that. I just want to make that clear. It was very hard. I don't condone any evil or abuse. It's the hardest thing to do, especially if you are on a path like me where it was actually through toxicity and abuse. So we're not condoning that, but we also understand that this awakening path is to reach a level of liberation. It doesn't happen, you know, to make your life crazy and to make you lose all sense of self, and you know, you don't go through all of that for no reason. It happens for you. It's for your liberation, to release all that density, to come back to that place of wholeness. And currently in the level of density that Earth is, for a lot of us, it comes through a lot of freaking bullshit. But that has been the most transformative thing that I've ever done for myself. And I can see very clearly like that for a lot of empaths, this is the path. So to help us work on that fear of hurting others, what I want to address as well is that we need to understand that tolerating toxicity and abuse is not an act of love. Enabling or tolerating even breadcrumbs, let's not just talk about toxicity and abuse, even just breadcrumbs, or keeping the wrong friendship in your life, even if there's nothing wrong with them, it's just not a good match, right? Tolerating that, enabling that keeps you stuck. Not only keeps you stuck, and it's not an act of self-love and honesty and truth, it's also not true love for others, because true love is truth with a capital T. True love is speaking up, speaking your needs, calling things out, keeping people accountable for their behavior. Whether they do something about it or not is besides the point, right? But if you never say anything, you never give someone the chance to. So this is our level of responsibility as well for us empaths. We need to understand that we've been enabling a lot of that stuff through programming, of course, but that's what we've done as well. We need to own that part of the puzzle. So what I want to end with is that you need to push through that fear and that resistance, and you need to pay very clear attention to what's happening in your life and the experiences and the recurring themes that are happening, and use all of those as an opportunity to speak up, to place those boundaries, to tune in and feel the shifts, right? And to lower those tolerance level, to raise the bar on what you want for yourself. Your soul awoken you because your soul wants you to reclaim that space in the world. But you need to want that. It's a co-creative process between the lower self and the higher self. We need to want that for ourselves. There's a level of determinism and courage that needs to happen. We need to want that, we need to feel it, and we need to allow the experiences and the shifts to happen instead of resisting them, instead of trying to bypass it. Pushing through that fear and resurrecting this organic dark aspect of ourselves is the best thing I've ever done and the best thing you ever do on this path, and it's the key to your liberation. And the last thing that I want to say as well is that there's an organic unfoldment that happens. So, once you stop resisting all of this and you actually do the work, which comes from, taking those actions and doing those things, there's a slow unfoldment that happens within your body where naturally and organically you will no longer be able to tolerate any breadcrumbs, any toxicity. You will actually feel repulsion in your body. So this is where there's a big misconception that the healing path is about, becoming okay and peaceful amongst anyone, including your toxic family. I don't agree with that. The way to unity consciousness is actually to separate yourself from what you're not. You cannot do it any other way. And how do I know that? It's because the body doesn't lie. We've been suppressing this repulsion that we've felt, right? And so when you go through this journey and putting those practices into place, little by little, you reconnect with your body and the feelings on such a subtle level. I've mentioned before that this path of ascension is not about going higher. We're actually going deeper within. Deeper and deeper within, feeling more and more subtle forms of energy within our body. And so we're reconnecting with that innate intelligence within our body that doesn't want to be around toxicity and abuse and breadcrumbs. So it's shifting those tolerance levels, but it's through that practice there's an organic unfoldment that happens where it becomes so embodied that you won't need to think about it. It's not going to be like an intellectual endeavor of thinking, I need to do this, I need to say that. It needs to be a natural process. Because it needs to be honest, it needs to be authentic. So as you go through your experiences, tune in, always tune in. Don't just say something because someone told you to do it. Tune into what your body is telling you. Feel that anger and that frustration. Feel it. This is a messenger. Emotions are a messenger and a fuel, and we need to be using that. So I hope this is clear, and I hope this is helpful, and I hope this will inspire you to do this work. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.